creative friends, welcome to my channel, and in this video I just want to go over some super fun ways, other ways to use a dehydrator. I think the dehydrator is one of the coolest appliances you can have, period. There's so much you can do with it, not just dehydrating food and making fruit leathers or jerky, but I just finished my video on making this apple spice drink, which is really good, and I was thinking of all the cool things you can do with it. So I made a list, and I'm going to go over my list of 10 different things you can do with your dehydrator. Ooh, I just thought of another one. Let me write it down because that make it 11. Hang on, breadcrumbs. Okay, so I don't want to forget that. All right, so my list. First thing is, you know when you get crackers and you have crackers and then they get stale? Now this won't work with things like corn chips or potato chips because the oil in them gets rancid. But if it's just like a saltine cracker or like a Ritz cracker, that kind of stuff, when they're stale, put them on your dehydrator, let them go for a little bit, and it will make them crispy again. So that's awesome. So freshen your stale crackers. And if you have the kind of dehydrator, like I have different kinds, the ones you've seen, sometimes it's got the drawers in it. You know, you can take some drawers out of there and put your bread in there if you're making bread to rise your bread. It's really good, especially if you've got a cooler kitchen and it's going to take longer for your bread to rise. So you can rise your bread in there. Drying herbs. You know, a lot of people don't really ever use their dehydrator for drying herbs, but here's a little trick. Herbs will dry and get so tiny and light that they'll kind of fly around in there. So a trick is just to lay a little bit of cheesecloth on them, or put them between two pieces of paper towels and just kind of, I will sometimes just staple the corners of the paper towel so that they don't blow away, and put the herbs in between them. There's a tip on drying herbs for you. One of my favorites is long-term storage baby food. You think, who? Well, think about this. If you do your vegetables, and these are the foods that you eat, so your baby is learning to eat foods that they will get used to, which is awesome. So if you're, say you're a person who uses, I don't know, frozen mixed vegetables, and they don't taste anything like what you get in baby food. You guys ever eaten that? It's just nasty. But if you take your vegetables and fruits and things and you puree them and then dry them and then you grind them into a powder, that's awesome, because you can, you know, if you go to the baby food aisle and you look, there's like starter, then there's like a little bit thicker, and you're spending money on that when you can have, say, peas. Get the frozen peas, pour them out, boom, on the dehydrator, let them dry, grind them into a powder, and then you can mix it to whatever consistency is good for your baby. So at the time, at their level of development. And I love that. I think it's really cool. So that's a good thing. And just think about it. Say you're going on a trip, you got your baby bag, you don't have to have all those little jars. If you had a jar and you put the powder in it, you'd have the equivalent of multiple jars. Or you could just put them in little Ziploc bags. Those little snack bag size are great. You can put a couple spoons in there and then just put a little hot water, mix them up, and feed your baby. That's one of my favorites. Instant rice. You know, you can get the minute rice. All that has been cooked and dehydrated. So what happens when you have food and it's like the little cells of the food are like this, they're closed. When you cook them, they will pop open. And this is one of the reasons why you want to par cook certain things before you can them, so it pops open and the air goes out, and that's why they won't float. But in general, when you say you take rice or pasta, it breaks those open. And then you dry them. So they're dried like that. They don't lose their size like other things, but they'll dry like that, so that when you put water in, the water doesn't have to break through that cell. It's already open, so the water just goes right in and it rehydrates quickly. That's where you get things like your ramen noodles. Try that with spaghetti. Cook it, dehydrate it, almost the same thing. Rice. Have you ever seen instant jasmine rice? Probably not, but you can make it. It's probably out there. I've just never seen it. Of course, I've never really looked for instant jasmine rice, but all the different rices you can do. And it's really cool. Just cook it and then dehydrate it. And then all you have to do, it's perfect if you're going to do like, say you're going to put some broth and some vegetables and some rice in a bag and then take it to lunch, add some boiling water, and you've got soup. perfect. You don't have to wait for that to cook. So that's a good thing. Pasta's the same way. I like to do elbow macaroni. I think way back I did a video on that. Way back. A long time ago. But I like to do elbow macaroni particularly because I can put that in a bowl with cool water, let it sit on my counter for about 30 minutes or in the fridge, and then drain it. And then I can immediately make like a macaroni salad without having to cook the pasta and then drain it and then try to let it cool down because it's got to be cooler when you put all the stuff in. So that's a cool thing. So, oh, that was two. The instant rice, any kind, and the quick pasta. If you are a sourdough maker, I've never been great at that. I'm going to continue to try it though. You can proof your sourdough in there if your dehydrator goes down to like 75 to 80 degrees. If it doesn't, take the door off and it will let a lot of the hotter air out and it'll be better. So that's a good way to proof your sourdough. Making yogurt. I love using my Instant Pot to make yogurt, but if you don't have one of those, just get yourself a yogurt recipe and, you can get little, the little half pint jars. I like to do it in that. Put it in the ones, if you have the dehydrator that's got the drawers, take some of the drawers out and stand those on there and set your dehydrator to about 110. And you will be able to, you can get instructions all day long on the internet for that. But if you didn't know that you can use your dehydrator for that, you can. What's the other thing? Oh, crafty things. If you're doing some paper mache, things that we're making with paper mache, you can put that in there. It'll dry really nice. Another thing is a lot of times people will make those apple cinnamon gingerbread man Christmas ornaments. Perfect for putting on there. Don't use that phyllo or that kind of clay that you make things out of. That's toxic. So you don't ever want to use a cooking item to dry that kind of clay. So pay attention to the instructions on your clay. Breadcrumbs, if you have bread that's getting stale or you're not going to use it, or like hamburger buns, you got a few of those, toss them on there. Just let them go, dehydrate them down, and then grind them into a powder. Just crush them if you want a different kind of like more of a flaky flake as opposed to a powder flake. And you can add all the herbs and wonderful things you want to those. So that's a good thing. And one of my favorites is just to play with your dehydrator. I love to do dill pickles. Do dill pickles and then grind them into a powder, and that powder is phenomenal. Sprinkle it on a hamburger, sprinkle it on your potato chips or like your French fries. Oh my God, it's so good. So good. But the other thing, one of my favorite all time, is to take barbecue sauce, read the instructions, make sure there's not oil in it, but barbecue sauce and dehydrate it or make it into a barbecue sauce leather. Because what is super cool about that, so say you're going to do pork chops or chicken breasts and you're just going to put them in the oven and you want to put barbecue sauce on them and you have to keep going back and putting it in there because as it cooks, it'll slide off. Not if you just rip a nice big chunk of barbecue leather and lay it on top of the chicken breast or something. That's genius because it just sits there. Sprinkle a little water on it and it will rehydrate with the juices of the chicken or the meat, and it'll be like a nice thick barbecue sauce on there. So those are just some of the things I can think of. Let me check my list and see if I missed any. Nope, got them all. So those are some of the fun things you can do with your dehydrator. It's not just about dehydrating vegetables and fruit and making fruit leather. It's an awesome appliance, which is why I have my 2 big drawer dehydrators that permanently live in my kitchen because I use it for all kinds of things. So, you know what I did one time? I actually took spaghetti that just had a marinara sauce on it, didn't have any oil in it, and there was no meat. And I took it and there was so much left. I just took the big globs of spaghetti and put it on there and I dehydrated it. So I had these big flat, they look like a spaghetti patty. But all I did was put those in a bowl and put some hot water on it and let it rehydrate. And for lunch, I had homemade spaghetti. So think about doing stuff like that. It's really awesome. Just make sure you don't dehydrate dairy things other than like I did the yogurt. But milk, eggs, those kind of things. There's plenty of instruction for that. But you can also make some gummies, which I want to do a video on making little gummy candies. And oh gosh, I can just think of tons of stuff. So if you want to see me do any of the things that I just mentioned, send me a little note, message me, and let me know what you want to see me do. And I'm going to do some miscellaneous things, and I'll show you how to do some other things on the dehydrator. But for now, As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.